Hey, what's up, my friend? Now, do you suffer from lack of sleep or insomnia? I know how it feels. It's debilitating. Now, watch this quick little video and learn exactly how CBD oil will be able to help you overcome these issues. Enjoy.
Breakdown. So cannabidiol is not cannabis. What cannabidiol is essentially an oil that acts on a different pathway in the body. You see, when we consume any kind of cannabis or anything like that, it's affecting what is known as CBD1 and CBD2 receptors in the body. Cannabidiol does not affect those. Okay? It doesn't affect them in the way that some other compounds would. What cannabidiol does is it actually triggers the body to utilize and release more of what are called endocannabinoids. Endocannabinoids are what give us a sensation of bliss. If you've heard of anandamide before, that's a perfect example of an endocannabinoid. You know the feeling when you eat dark chocolate? You feel pretty darn good, and it's not just because of the sugar. You actually get an endorphin rush, and that's anandamide, which is a very common, probably the most popular endocannabinoid. So CBD encourages your body to produce and utilize more endocannabinoids. But we have dozens of different endocannabinoids that do different things within the body. So in this particular case, we're talking about cannabidiol oil and its effect on the body's production of endocannabinoids. I want to talk about how it affects sleep. And in the last section that I did on CBD, I talked about anxiety and how it works on the 5-HT1A receptor when it comes to CBD. Well, guess what? Sleep and anxiety go kind of hand in hand. You think about it, if you're anxious, you're not going to sleep very well. And if you're totally relaxed, you might sleep a little bit better. So the first part of this video does coincide with the last video that I did. So I'm going to resurface a little bit from that video. So you have something known as a 5-HT1A receptor on neurons in your body, specifically in your brain. Okay, these 5-HT1A receptors trigger the release of serotonin, but they also trigger the uptake of serotonin, also known as the serotonin reuptake. So basically, our bodies have an ability to recognize when serotonin is in between neurons and not being used, and it grabs it and reutilizes it. Basically, what this particular process does is it allows those extra molecules of serotonin to get used better. Let me rephrase this a little bit easier. Basically, all it means is that 5-HT1A gets triggered by CBD, meaning your body becomes much more sensitive to serotonin. And I'll explain a little bit more about serotonin in just a second. But through this process, our bodies become more efficient and effective at utilizing serotonin, which means that they get relaxed a lot quicker, and we have a lot more control over whether we get relaxed or whether we get a little bit more anxious. It almost puts us in the driver's seat a little bit more because we're not at the mercy of other neurotransmitters. So let's talk a little bit more about serotonin in the first place. Serotonin is what is known as an inhibitory neurotransmitter. That means that it stops things. People think that serotonin is a neurotransmitter that triggers us to feel good. It's actually kind of the opposite. It's more like a filter. You see, it's a filter that filters messages that would normally get to the neuron. If we have excitatory messages that are causing us to be super anxious, causing us to fire up and feel like basically we couldn't sleep, or overthinking, all that stuff, serotonin comes in and filters those messages so that only the positive thoughts and only the critical thoughts get through. If we had too much serotonin all the time, quite frankly, we probably wouldn't get much done. And quite frankly, we probably wouldn't ever have much success. We don't want to be constantly flooded with serotonin. We just want it at the right time so that we do actually have legitimate downtime. So serotonin is a good thing, but we don't want to constantly have it elevated. So what CBD does is by acting on this 5-HT1A receptor is it gives our bodies the ability to utilize more when it needs more or utilize less when it needs less. It's pretty fascinating. But when it comes to sleep, this is where it's really cool. Serotonin is a precursor to what is known as melatonin. And maybe you've heard of melatonin before because melatonin is something that you might take a 1 or 3 or even 5 milligram tab of to help you fall asleep. But serotonin helps create that naturally in your body. And that melatonin regulates your sleep-wake cycle. So studies have even shown that melatonin, when naturally increased, can help regulate when you fall asleep and when you wake up. And since serotonin is now more prevalent in the body, it means that melatonin can be more prevalent. All at the mercy of your body wanting to do it at the right time. So it's not like you just take CBD and you're just going to fall asleep flat on your face. It's like you take CBD and you might be in a situation where you can say, I feel like going to bed. Okay, it's time, and your body's going to respond a lot better. But don't take my word for it. I want to take a look at a study because this is the way I operate. I'm just some guy on the internet, right? I want to make sure that there's some peer-reviewed studies that back this stuff up. And there was one particular study that I found that was exceptionally interesting. This study was published in the Journal of Clinical Pharmacology. Pretty interesting study. It actually was a 2-part study. The first part of the study looked at the overall efficacy and safety of cannabidiol oil, and it took a look at acute doses ranging from 10 to 600 milligrams over the course of 10 years. Very long tail study. That's kind of the nice thing about studying endocannabinoids and CBD is that the studies go back pretty darn far. It's been researched for a long time. It may seem like a newfangled thing, but scientists and researchers and doctors have been looking at it for years and years and years. And what they were overall looking at was specific volunteers that were participating in the study. Healthy volunteers, insomniacs, and those that were epileptic. Why epileptic? Because they usually had overactive nervous systems and neurotransmitters that were a little bit wacky. It was a perfect study. So what they found is that there was no psychiatric or psychological effect coming from the CBD over a 10-year period, so nothing like cannabis, and there was no hepatotoxic effect. There was no liver toxicity or no overall blood toxicity, showing that it was a pretty darn safe compound. So that's test number one. This next study that was umbrellaed under the same research took a look at CBD versus placebo versus benzodiazepines when it comes down to anxiety and sleep. They took a look at 40, 80, and 160 milligram servings of cannabidiol. Okay, and what they found was that versus placebo and versus literally benzodiazepines, we're talking things like Xanax, things like Valium, things like that, things that are heavily abused and shouldn't be used in abundance. And what they found was that CBD ended up eliciting a better response when it came down to anxiety, but it also elicited a better response when it came down to sleep. Those that took 160 milligrams of CBD ended up reporting significantly better sleep and overall less dream recall. In case you're wondering why dream recall matters, you actually don't dream when you're in a deep sleep. You dream during a different phase of your sleep. And if you're dreaming, you're actually not in as deep of a sleep. So when you wake up and you remember your dreams, you actually didn't sleep nearly as good as you thought you did. Dream recall means that you're not sleeping as good. So if you have less dream recall, it means you went into that deep sleep where you're essentially dead for all that matters. You don't remember anything. You're just sleeping. So that's pretty powerful. That's a very, very powerful thing to see, is that CBD has a more profound effect than placebo versus benzodiazepines, which are very hepatotoxic and very dangerous for your brain as far as dependency goes.
I hope you enjoyed the video and learned exactly how CBD oil can help you with your sleep problems. Now, if you'd like to try the best CBD oil on the market today, you can simply click the link below in the description and get yourself a free sample pack. All you have to do is enter your information and pay for the shipping. There will also be a link below for you to get a full bottle of CBD oil, and you're going to love it. So make sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and if you'd also like to learn how you can capitalize on this booming CBD industry, there's a link for that in the description as well. So I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you soon.